The Wizard of the Quiet Moon. Far beyond the edge of a small peaceful village, there stood a narrow stone tower on a hill. The hill was covered with tall grass that moved like waves whenever the wind passed through. At night, when the moon rose, the grass shimmered silver, and the tower seemed to glow softly, as if it were breathing in the quiet. The tower belonged to a wizard named Eldrin. Eldrin was not a wizard of storms or lightning. He did not summon thunder, and he did not seek great power. Instead, Eldrin studied quiet magic, the magic of small, gentle things. He believed that silence itself carried a kind of magic, if one listened carefully enough. The lantern room. At the very top of the tower was a circular room filled with lanterns. Some were made of glass, some of crystal, and some of thin paper painted with stars. Each lantern held a tiny, glowing light, but these were not ordinary lights. They were memories of peaceful moments, a quiet snowfall, the sound of waves at dusk, a lullaby sung by a mother, the soft rustle of pages in an old book. Eldrin had spent many years collecting these gentle memories, preserving them like fireflies in glass. Every evening he would climb the spiral staircase, light a small candle, and sit among the lanterns, listening to their faint, soothing glow. A visitor in the night won. Evening, as the sky turned deep blue, Eldrin heard a soft knock at the wooden door below. This was unusual. Very few people climbed the hill after sunset. Eldrin descended the stairs slowly and opened the door. Standing outside was a young traveller, a boy of about 12 years old, carrying a small bag over his shoulder. "My name is Thomas," the boy said softly. "I saw the light of your tower from the road. May I rest here for a while?" Eldrin studied the boy's tired eyes and nodded. "Of course," he said. "All travellers are welcome in a quiet place. Tea and silence." Inside, Eldrin prepared warm tea made from herbs that grew near the hill. The tea smelled faintly of mint and honey. Thomas sat near the fire, listening to the gentle crackle of the wood. For a long time, neither of them spoke, and strangely, the silence did not feel uncomfortable. It felt calm, like sitting beside a lake at sunset. Finally, Thomas asked, "Wizard, what kind of magic do you do here?" Eldrin smiled slightly. "I help the world rest," he said. The first lesson. Eldrin led Thomas up the spiral staircase to the lantern room. The boy's eyes widened as he saw the glowing lights floating gently in the dim space. "What are these?" Thomas whispered. "Moments of peace," Eldrin replied. "Collected so they are never forgotten." He picked up a small lantern and opened its lid. A faint sound filled the air, the soft rhythm of rain falling on leaves. Thomas closed his eyes. For a moment he felt as if he were standing in a quiet forest, listening to rain on a warm evening. Then the sound faded as Eldrin closed. The work of a quiet wizard. That night, Eldrin showed Thomas how he worked. They walked outside into the silver grass under the moonlight. Eldrin carried a clear glass jar. "Listen," he said. Thomas stood still. At first he heard nothing but the wind, but slowly he noticed other sounds. The distant chirp of crickets, the whisper of grass, the faint call of an owl. Eldrin held up the jar, and a tiny glow appeared inside it. "What did you catch?" Thomas asked. "A peaceful moment," Eldrin said, "one that might otherwise fade." The dream of the hill. Later that night, Thomas slept in a small room in the tower. He dreamed of the hill, of the grass glowing softly, of lanterns drifting into the sky like slow, silent stars. When he woke, the morning sun was warm and golden. For a moment, he felt so calm that he did not want to move at all. Days in the tower. Thomas stayed for several days. He helped Eldrin gather herbs, polish lanterns, and walk along the hill at the sunset. He learned that quiet magic required patience. Sometimes they would sit for an hour saying nothing, simply watching clouds drift across the sky. At first, Tomas found it difficult. His thoughts would race. He would feel restless. But gradually his mind began to slow, and he began to notice things he had never noticed before, the way shadows changed shape, the way the air cooled just before evening, the distant sound of water flowing somewhere far away. The night of the wind. One night a strong wind began to blow. The grass bent low, and the tower creaked softly. Tomas looked worried. "Will the lanterns be safe?" he asked. Eldrin nodded calmly. "Yes. Quiet magic is stronger than it seems." They sat in the lantern room, watching the lights sway gently but never go out. "Why don't they fade?" Tomas asked. "Because peace," Eldrin said, "is stronger than fear, even when the world grows loud." A lantern for Tomas. On Tomas's last evening, Eldrin gave him a small lantern. Inside it glowed a soft, steady light. "What is this one?" Tomas asked. Eldrin smiled. "It is the sound of this tower, on a quiet night, with a traveller resting by the fire." Tomas held the lantern carefully. "I will never forget," he said. The journey home. The next morning, Tomas began his journey back to the village. As he walked down the hill, he turned once and looked back. The tower stood silent and peaceful in the morning light, and though it seemed small from a distance, Tomas felt certain that the quiet magic inside it was larger than any castle or city. The years passed. Years went by. Tomas grew older. He travelled to many places and saw many things. Busy markets, noisy cities, crowded roads. But whenever the world felt too loud, he would open his lantern, and for a moment he would hear the faint sound of wind in tall grass, and feel calm again. The return one evening, many years later, Tomas returned to the hill. The grass still shimmered silver in the moonlight. The tower still stood, calm and patient. He climbed the path slowly and knocked on the door. It opened. Eldrin stood there looking just as he had before, as if time moved more gently in the tower. "I wondered when you might return," the wizard said. Tomas smiled. "I came to listen," he said. "The last lesson." That night they sat in silence again, as they had long ago. Finally Tomas asked, "What is the greatest magic you know?" Eldrin looked at the lanterns, glowing softly in the darkness. Then he said, "The greatest magic is learning to be still, to breathe slowly, to listen, and to let the world be quiet." The quiet moon. Outside, the moon rose high above the hill. The grass moved softly in the wind. The tower stood silent, filled with gentle light. And if you had walked there on that night, you might have heard, very faintly, the sound of lanterns glowing and two quiet voices, and the peaceful silence between them, and slowly, gently. The night grew deeper, the wind softened, and the world itself seemed to fall asleep. Thank you for listening, and sleep well.